Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be with you today, even if only virtually. In my short presentation, I will introduce the 2022 e-government survey and some key findings and recommendations. The United Nations e-government survey is a flagship publication of the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. It is issued every 2 years. On the 28th of September 2022, we have launched the 12th edition of this report. The report will be available soon in the other 5 official languages of UN. And let me take this opportunity to warmly thank Gealc from Uruguay and Red Gealc for translating the report in Spanish. I do believe all of you is familiar with the survey methodology based on a quantitative composite index called the EGDI, e-Government Development Index, organized in 4 main groups: very high, high, middle, and low EGDI, further divided in 12 different rating classes. Countries with the same rating class have the same level of digital development. EGDI is based on 3 composite sub-indices: the Online Service Index, the Telecommunication Infrastructure Index, and Human Capital Index. The survey presents a ranking and a rating based on the EGDI and also an e-participation ranking. Since 2018, the report presents a ranking for the largest municipalities. To improve the methodology, a limited number of changes were introduced in 2022 to consider the lessons learned from the previous editions, the input and feedbacks received by member states, the outcomes of expert group meetings, and the latest technological and policy development. In 2022, the Online Service Index has been refined. The 2022 OSI has been calculated based on 5 new categories: institutional framework, service provisions, content provisions, technology, and e-participation, with the OSI as a whole calculated based on the normalized value for each sub-index. This new approach introduces the concept of a composite online service index. A weight was assigned for each category. The assessment of city portals has been also expanded from 100 cities in 2020 to 193 in 2022, and we have been run 2 pilot initiatives on complex network analysis and the Open Government Data Index. The e-government development has improved between 2020 and 2022. In these editions, the survey offers new evidence on how technology is transforming the way government operates, shifting from the traditional technocratic approach to an integrated digital agenda that is policy-oriented, people-centric, and data-driven. It illustrates how e-government has expanded and evolved from silos to all of government and all of society's approaches. At a glance, there is improvement in global trends, with the transitioning of many countries from lower to higher EGDI groups. Comparing 2020 with 2022, the number of countries in very high EGDI groups slightly increased, while the middle and low EGDI groups declines. Interesting to notice the upward of Peru moving from middle to high EGDI. More than 2/3 of the countries are now in the high and very high EGDI groups. Overall, the upward trend is encouraging, but the global average EGDI value raised slightly in 2022 and less than our expectations, and the changes introduced in the EGDI methodology can only partially justify it. At regional level, Europe continues to remain for the 12th time the leader region, followed by Asia, the Americas, Oceania, and Africa. While we observed widespread reliance on digital technologies for service delivery during the COVID-19, digital transformation has not yet materialized in a more homogeneous and comprehensive manner, especially for developing countries. Despite investments in technologies and the development gains achieved in many countries, the digital divide persists, and for some group of countries increase. Ongoing challenges continue to undermine the development efforts of countries in special situations, especially the least developed countries, as clearly shown in this map. Using the global average GDI value as a proxy for measuring the digital divide, the 2022 survey indicates that about 45% of the combined population of UN member states, about 3.5 billion people, still lag behind. In Africa, 50 out of 54 countries have AGDI values below the global average, and the same is true for 11 of the 12 seats in Oceania. The digital divide is now the new face of inequality, and the global community needs to take action to leave no one behind. Even before the COVID pandemic, there were widening socioeconomic inequalities, exacerbated by digital gaps. The accelerated digitalization for a fast recovery has magnified these divides. To overcome inequalities, governments need to develop integrated frameworks for implementing inclusive e-government. As a first step, they need to identify barriers to digital inclusions relating to access, affordability, and ability. The second step is to develop a targeted implementation, people-centered strategies for leaving no one behind that is grounded in data, design, and delivery optimizations. One of the key lessons learned is that the future is still hybrid and not digital. The primary objective is recognizing human agency and supporting human development through digitalization. Therefore, the future should be an inclusive, integrated, analog-digital ecosystem that will ensure no one is left behind. It means to adopt the principle of inclusions by default or inclusion by design. More proactive efforts are needed to acknowledge and identify the gaps, to provide vulnerable populations with mechanisms for engagement so that possible discriminations are better identified and overcome, to improve the lives of those who need the most. The global community can contribute to leaving no one behind in digital government through knowledge exchange, strategic partnerships, and collaborative capacity building. And the digital government should work always as an equalizer for inclusions. To do so, leaving no one behind should guide policy development and implementation in e-government and the public sector, a whole-of-government approach that integrates multi-level, multi-sectorial, and multidisciplinary strategies and partnerships is needed for the implementation of inclusive digital government. But governments should adopt inclusion by design, inclusion by default, or inclusion first strategies before doing digital by design. And the targeted, localized, and contextual approaches should be developed for different groups of vulnerable, as not all excluded groups are confronted with the same barriers. At the same time, innovations and digital transformation must aim to be truly inclusive. More member states are developing cutting-edge technologies, such as cloud computing, artificial intelligence, and blockchains. Some have developed new methods for exploiting data-driven policy modeling tools and have created pilot initiatives and sandboxes to design, validate, and scale up innovative solutions. New approaches are strengthening member state analytical and anticipatory capabilities and are shaping future development scenarios. Governments are setting themselves up to better anticipate and respond to the needs of all members of societies. Looking at the future, the survey indicates that a growing number of countries are moving towards seamless, invisible government in which fully automated and personalized services are made accessible to anyone, anytime, from anywhere, using cutting-edge technologies. But the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development should remain the government blueprint for building a healthier and more resilient inclusive future, and leaving no one behind should become the operational principle for the future, guiding digital development and making e-government as a force for good. Before concluding, allow me to show some global and regional performance, zooming in on the Americas. These slides present the top world leading countries in the highest rating class. We have 8 countries from Europe: Denmark, Finland, Sweden, Estonia, Netherlands, UK, Ireland, and Malta. 4 from Asia: South Korea, Singapore, UAE, and Japan. And 1 from Americas, USA. We also have 2 from Oceania, New Zealand, and Australia. It is worthy to notice that UAE and Malta are new entries. Zooming at regional level, it is interesting to notice the outstanding performance of the red Gealc countries such as Canada and Uruguay, and Chile and Argentina that have the same rating class V2. Also important to notice Peru, Guyana, and Belize that moved from middle to high GDI group. All the members of red Gealc are in the high and very high GDI, but Cuba and Honduras still in the middle AGDI, and Haiti the only countries that moved down to the low AGDI group. And with this, I conclude my presentation. More insights, analytics, and policy recommendations are in the report, as well as more information about the pilot initiatives and the local online service index, LOSI, for the municipalities. Also, Undesa hosts an online e-government knowledge base with all data sets, including the ranking for AGDI, e-participation, LOSI, Open Government Data Index, and the sub-indices. We welcome you to download the report to explore further and also to use our knowledge base to do by yourself your analytics. And with this, I thank you for your attention and I wish you a very fruitful meeting.